welcome everyone to the Gridiron Icon podcast. We're so glad to have everyone here. You can find us anywhere around the corner, all podcasts, Apple Podcasts, you name it, you can find us. YouTube, go right to it if you want to see these wonderful faces. We got a wonderful show for you this evening. And before we get to it, ladies and gentlemen, my partner, and I won't say in crime, Mr. Stacy Bauman. Let's welcome him to the show. Stacy!
Hey, good to see you, my friend. I am excited for our guest tonight.
Oh, I am too. I think everybody else will be. And I got some good stories to tell too. But let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a special guest. And he comes to us from the state of Arizona, where his accomplishments on the gridiron include induction into the College Football Hall of Fame. He was a Super Bowl champion, a Pro Bowler, Coach of the Year, two-time champion of the Arena Football League, and named Arizona's Athlete of the Century. Ooh, wait a minute. I grew up in Arizona. Okay.
Uh-oh.
I don't match the weight of this gentleman. Ladies and gentlemen.
It's the last century.
Oh,
that's the only problem with that deal.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Dallas Cowboy himself, Mr. Danny White. Welcome, Danny. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, guys. Great to be with you.
Oh, man. You know awesome. What? I was telling Stacy, I said, Danny and I are closer than you think we are. And we don't see each other all the time. But I used to, in 74, when he got drafted, I was a senior in high school, just finishing. Went to the University of New Mexico as a freshman. And playing in the Western Athletic Conference back then, playing against those Sun Devils. And I grew up wanting to be a Sun Devil, and it didn't happen. But the closest I came is that gentleman coached my oldest son in arena football and had one of the greatest times. Danny, thank you for that personally, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me on, guys. And I can tell you that young Ryan Denard is a chip off the old block. What a pleasant young. I don't know where he got it. He must have got it from his mom, but
yeah, he didn't get it from me because I'm not that tough.
There's nothing, no better way to find out what someone's made of than to coach them. Mm-hmm. You find out very quickly what they're made of, and he, oh my gosh. Everything you asked and more. And if I had more Ryan Denards on my team, I'd have won a lot more championships.
Man, bless your heart. Bless your heart.
He's a great one.
That is outstanding, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. I know he will too. And that was a kid. You'll love this quick story, and then we want to get to you. When he was in high school, starting as a freshman, he wanted to go to the gym. And he woke me up. I said, well, wake me up tomorrow morning. He wakes me up at 5 a.m. I said, where are you going? He says, I'm going to the gym, Dad. I'm going to meet Coach there. I said, wait a minute. Somebody's there at 5 a.m. at the high school? He says, yeah. He did that his entire 4-year career. That was the kind of kid.
I believe it.
Didn't have to ask him twice. Well, man, let's get to you. Thank you. Kudos for that. I'm so glad he was a part of your history and made him that much better of an athlete. So, let's start from the beginning, my friend. I knew I grew up watching you. I admired you guys. I mean, your receivers, oh my gosh. You had some outstanding receivers those years, and I don't know all of them that you played. Now, did you throw the Morris Owens?
Yes.
Okay, you threw the Morris, and
Morris was a year behind me. Morris Owens, Greg Hudson.
Yeah, Greg Hudson.
Steve Holden was a year ahead of me.
Okay.
But so my sophomore year, I had Steve Holden, Joe Petty.
Joe Petty
had some, and then my senior year, a young guy by the name of Michael Haynes came along, and he would have been the greatest receiver in the history of ASU, but Frank Cush thought he needed help on defense, and so he moved him over to the defensive side, and all he did was go on to be an all-pro cornerback, as you know, for the New England Patriots and the NFL all 25-year team. And
Yeah.
So Michael was kind of a part of that. Woody Green and Benny Malone were my running backs. Brett McClanahan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we had some fun experiences together, and 32-4 in those 3 years.
Wow.
And won the first 3 Fiesta Bowls. Actually, it's the timing's interesting because we're having our 50-year reunion
Oh, really?
of Fiesta Bowl 1, 2, and 3 champions tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday is the reunion for those 3 teams. So everybody's coming together, and we'll get to tell some lies. But
and
there's nothing like winning to bring a group of guys together, and we're as close today via email and chats and things like that as we've ever been.
Oh,
that's
what a blessing.
amazing.
Well, let's get this thing going. We want to hear from you. First of all, disclaimer, it could be Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
But I thought it
was
Danny White.
Oh.
But it also could be Denard. So with that said, my friend, I've covered all the bases. Tell us how Danny White got started in this athletic journey. Baseball, football, I don't know what other sports you played, but tell us about it when you first got involved in football and other sports as a young man.
Yeah, I played them all. My dad was an All-American football player at ASU,
right?
And at Mesa High School, and then played for the Chicago Bears and George Halas for 4 years before he blew out his knee.
Wow.
So growing up, it was just in my blood. And it was not just football. It was every sport, whatever was in season. I was doing it, including track. I was second in the state in the long jump and high jumped, and I remember my dad driving me from the track over to the baseball field, and me in the back seat changing uniforms.
Yeah,
one to the other. But yeah, I just loved it. Baseball was my favorite sport growing up, and in fact, I went to ASU on a baseball scholarship, and of course, the baseball scholarship back then was like gold at ASU, because ASU was in the national championship every year. So I just thought that was going to be my ticket to professional baseball.
Wow.
It's funny how things change.
Unbelievable. And this is, I think for anybody listening, they'd love to hear the story of how Frank Cush punting and baseball scholarships all collided into a guy that is a renowned football quarterback.
Well, my dad and I went to every ASU football game. We're about 5 miles away from the stadium, and every game, never missed one, and most of the basketball games. But I never dreamed in my wildest dreams that I would wear an ASU football uniform, let alone be a quarterback. So I accepted the baseball scholarship, and there were 5 quarterbacks on the freshman team. Joe Spagnola was a senior quarterback, and he graduated. And so between my freshman and sophomore years, all those other quarterbacks, I was a defensive back and a punter. And my freshman year was spent with a cast on my arm playing receiver and defensive back.
Wow.
And covering at our night practices. I remember like it was yesterday, going over to because we played most of our games at night.
At night, yeah.
Being in the West and the heat and everything. I would cover J.D. Hill.
No.
In practice. I was the practice dummy for JD, and if you ever talk to JD, ask him about me as a
quarterback. He'll have plenty to say.
I would line up about 15 yards off of him in a track stance, ready to run the other way, because he was not going to beat me deep. And it made him so mad. He called me. Remember now, I'm a little freshman nobody.
Yeah.
JD called me every name in the book. Get your sorry butt up here and cover me, and don't stand back there, you coward. And and he never did beat me deep. And to this day, we laugh about it. But so that was my freshman year. And then all these quarterbacks on the freshmen, they transferred, and so it kind of ended up with Grady Hurst being the incumbent quarterback and me as a backup, even though I only played 1 year of quarterback in high school. I was hurt. I got a concussion my junior year, missed the whole season.
Wow.
So I played 1 year. Frank Kush saw me in the Arizona State All-Star game, which was held in June up in Flagstaff.
Mm-hmm.
And I started at free safety, and I was the backup quarterback. Well, in the first half, I intercepted 3 passes, and in the second half, I played quarterback and threw 3 touchdown passes. And we won the game 21-20. I was also a kicker, a place kicker. And Frank Kush was at that game. And up until then, they had not offered me a scholarship for anything. Wow. And all of a sudden, he started showing some interest in me, and I think that game is what did it. And then my sophomore year, we went up to Camp Tontozona, and Coach Kush, typical of Frank Kush, he put me in one day with the starting offense up at camp just to see what Grady would do, how he would react to it. Grady quit. He got mad and quit, and he left, hitchhiked home. And all of a sudden, like that, I'm the starting quarterback as a sophomore. And we went down for the first game, and I'm out on the field. Here I am in this stadium where I went to all those games with my dad and all those people. And Coach Kush comes up to me and says, "Hey, White, you look nervous."
That's him. That's him.
Coach, to be honest with you, I am a little nervous. I didn't expect this. And he said, don't worry about it. There's 11 guys out there. 10 of them are better runners than you are. Just get the ball from the center and give it to somebody without dropping it, and we'll be fine.
Wow.
That was his pep talk.
That's Frank Kush.
And, you know, I as I think back on it, I made a career. Isn't it interesting? I made a career out of getting the ball from the center and getting it to somebody without dropping it. And I was that somebody was always, it was Woody Green, it was Benny Malone, it was Brent McClanahan, it was Tony Dorsett, it was Drew Pearson. You know, it just followed me. And we just had a great team. And like I say, we won the first 3 Fiesta Bowls, and I really didn't do that much, but I found out very quickly that playing quarterback for ASU's football team was a heck of a lot more exciting than standing out in center field waiting for someone to hit a ball to me. And it didn't take long for football to take over as my favorite sport.
I got to jump in here because our guest Danny White is being humble. You had a 32-4 record. You were an All-American. You set 7 passing records, and you averaged 41 yards per punt. I think you were doing a little more than handing it off to playmakers, my friend. There was a little bit more. You're very humble. Not to mention, and it's now a good time, Preston, you played some school called New Mexico at one point and threw 6 touchdown passes. Does that hurt? Does that hurt 88?
Let me tell you that story real quick.
Oh.
I separated my shoulder in the 3rd game.
Ooh.
And they went out and found Grady and brought him back on the team.
What?
Really?
Grady starts the next 3 games, and we lose in Corvallis. We lose to Oregon State. And so we traveled to Albuquerque. I'm on the sideline. I went with the team, but I'm not ready to play yet. I'm still recovering. Coach Kush comes up to me on the sideline and says, "Hey, White, you're starting. Grady's nervous." What? Just like that. And I wait, hold it, Coach. Coach, I can't throw. I don't have my full arm strength yet. Don't worry about it. We'll run the ball. So we run the ball down the field, get down to like the 2-yard line. He calls this little bootleg, and I roll out, and I throw a pass to Steve Holden wide open in the end zone, right? So I come off the field, and Cush meets me on the side and says, "Hey, White, you're staying in. Grady's still nervous."
Classic.
And so at the end of the day, as you said, I was 9 for 12 for 124 yards, nothing spectacular, 6 touchdowns.
Wow.
Six of my nine completions were touchdown passes. But again, it was a screen pass to Woody Green. It was a bootleg to Steve Holden. It was nothing spectacular. And yet the next day they named me AP UPI National College Player of the Week. Grady quit again, and my career was back on track. But, there were some things like that happened that I cannot say I had a lot of control over, but somebody wanted me to play football, I think.
That is and a big shout out to Grady, wherever Grady may be.
Yeah, Grady.
There's a lesson in his journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness, Danny, your college career was incredible. Baseball, it's a theme on this show, including my co-host here. It seems to be everybody's first love. But the whole punting thing, I mean, absolutely amazing that you did. And this, by the way, followed you into the NFL. We'll get there. But how did you ever? I mean, for if somebody was doing that now in the NFL, doing that, which incidentally, bizarrely enough, this week, Patrick Mahomes says, "I'm the backup punter," and I went, "Excuse me, I don't think I've heard that since Danny White." that would be a whole marketing campaign. Subway would be calling up,
Yeah, and I never understood it. I never understood what the big deal was. I punted all my life. It just just a street punter. I never went to punting school or trained, to be a punter. But so what? It's third down. You don't make it. You just stay out there and you catch the ball and you punt it. What I loved about, and not only did it save a spot on the roster, somebody on that roster got a job because I was the punter. Otherwise, they would have been cut.
Yeah.
And so that made me feel good. I was contributing, but I loved to run from punt formation. I did it 19 times, and I would just catch the ball and watch the rush. And this is where it was unique, because most punters are not used to catching the ball and watching the rush at the same time.
Yeah.
But I could do that because of the shotgun formation, and I was used to doing it. And so I would love to catch it. And if they didn't rush, or if they rushed too tight, and it was the right down and distance, the right place on the field. I wouldn't do it backed up on our own 5-yard line in 4th and 15. But I would start to run, and if they came off and they saw me, I'd just pull up and kick it. I punted one pass. I was passing the line of scrimmage. It was 4th and 11 against the Rams. Preston.
Really?
Yeah.
And I was past the line of scrimmage, and I could see I wasn't going to make it. And I just kicked it.
Wow.
And you can punt a ball from anywhere on the field.
Right.
And now you might have linemen down the field. So what? You get a 5-yard penalty and you punt again. So
that's a good point.
Why? I don't understand why more punters haven't done that. But that was, I punted for 8 years, four when I was a backup to Roger, and then 4 as the starter. I did both, and it was nothing. It was just something that came natural for me, and I loved doing it.
I can't love that enough. Special teams never gets enough love, and it's just such a spotlight on how much the game has changed. Everybody's a specialist now. And we're looking back at an era with Danny White's playing quarterback and punting. In college, he's playing DB. it's just such a different era now. I want to jump up to the pros here as Preston allows, because you have such a fascinating journey. And I have to be honest, as a younger guy, I watched your whole career for a lot of reasons, particularly the Los Angeles Rams and those battles, which have became so famous. But you took such a different route. The Cowboys drafted you as a punter in the third round, but you decided to go to the World League. I actually had a football coach who played in the World League, so it's always been an interesting subject. What was behind that decision?
Well, I never thought I was drafted as a punter. I always thought it was as a quarterback, but punting was just another way to contribute. So I got drafted, went to rookie camp with the Cowboys, and getting drafted in the third round was later than I had hoped, but I was the first quarterback drafted that year, which was a pleasant surprise.
Interesting.
There were several quarterbacks who were rated above me, but Gil Brandt and Tom Landry drafted me ahead of all of them, first pick of the third round. And so I went. They offered me a contract. I went to rookie camp. Gil Brandt called me and said, "Hey, we're going to increase your offer," and they finally offered me $60,000. Well, let's see, what was it? It was like 34, 40, and 45 with a $40,000. It added up to an average of $50,000 a year when you total everything, the signing bonus and everything.
Wow.
Well, one day I get a phone call from John Bassett, literally a phone call. John Bassett was the founder and the owner of what was then the Toronto Northmen of the World Football League. And he said, "Danny, what would it take to get you to come play in the World League?" And I just took Gil's final offer and I doubled it.
Yep.
And I came up with, I said, and I don't care how you structure it. I want $100,000 a year, which was a fortune.
Huge.
And I'll do it. And he said, "You got it." Just like that. Just like that. You got it. And I kicked myself ever since for not asking for more. He said, "You got it. Get on the plane. We're going to have you in Toronto and have an announcement and have you sign a contract."
Wow.
Now, in the next few weeks, the team moved to Memphis.
Right.
And became the Memphis Southmen Grizzlies. One of the great sports names of all, the Memphis Southmen Grizzlies.
Wow.
And so I played, and it was mainly because partly money, twice as much money, but the Cowboys had Roger Staubach, Craig Morton, Marv Bateman was the punter. What was I going to do?
Interesting.
And so I thought, well, here's an opportunity to play, and John Hewitt was another quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner. John McVay, Sean McVay's grandfather, was our coach. Wow. And we had players like Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, Paul Warfield. All three of them came to play for us in the World League after their undefeated season. So it was a great experience. And then after 2 years, the Cowboys still had my rights in the NFL, and they had traded Craig Morton and Marv Bateman. So I would step in as the backup to Roger and the punter. And Gil came to me and he said the words out of his mouth were, "After your experience in the World League, we consider you a first-round draft pick, and we're going to pay you accordingly." So he gave me a 5-year contract of $60,000 a year and a $70,000 signing bonus. And I thought I'd died and gone to heaven.
I love it. Love it. Well, in everybody's mind, I know they ask this question. It's just been a common moniker out there. You're with the Dallas Cowboys. In all of your thoughts, the world's team, America's team, everybody's team, did it really feel like that? I mean, was that mystique really that serious, or it was just a little catchphrase? What was it playing for the Cowboys?
Well, yeah, and the players hated that.
Did they really?
Tex Ram came up with it. Well, Preston, you can't tell me that the week that you played the Cowboys, that on your bulletin board there wasn't something up there about America's team. We're playing America's team this week, and coaches used it to motivate their players. People wanted to kill us.
Yeah.
I mean, the Redskins hated it. The Steelers hated us. Everybody hated us because of that moniker. And as players, we absolutely hated it.
Wow.
But I will say that playing for Tom Landry, and I don't know what to compare it to because I never played for anybody else. But
wow.
What a blessing in my life it was, not only because of his innovations on the field, the shotgun, the lineman shifting up and down, the flex defense, all the motion that we used. He had all these little, you could call them gimmicks, but they were little things that it took a lot of discipline to run his offense. But it gave us an edge. And we always felt like it did. It gave us confidence. And so playing for the Cowboys was special in that regard, not because of the America's team thing or the cheerleaders or any of that stuff. It was the fact that Tom Landry he created an environment where ordinary athletes could achieve extraordinary results. And by that, I mean, if you look at those Super Bowl teams of the late 70s, and you look at guys like Roger and Drew Pearson and Leroy Jordan and Jethro Pugh and Robert Newhouse and Charlie Waters, and those guys, they were all, if they tried to play today and they went to the combine would spit them out. Because they were all too slow. Yeah. They were all too small to play in the NFL.
Wow.
But there were guys who hated to lose with a passion. And that was the thing that I noticed first and foremost when I got there was when I went to the practice field the first time, and there was Leroy Jordan and Roger Staubach and these guys all out there lifting weights outside in our little patio that had all of our weights on it. And I learned very quickly that there's a reason the Dallas Cowboys were who they were, and it wasn't the America's team. That America's team thing came along really after I got there.
Oh, okay.
I remember that.
But it was like in 77 or 78, something like that. Tex Ram came up with it, and it's been that way ever since. And players still hate it because it just lights a fire under the opposing team, every week, and you have to deal with that. But
I always felt like the Cowboys got a little upset about the whole steel curtain thing. And that's where they came up with America's team. And it still lives. I mean, commercials just 2 days ago, the Rams are playing the Cowboys here soon. They're talking about America's team. What an incredible history with that.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing. That was a pretty special day when he came up with it, when Tex came up with it, and it's stuck, and I think it'll be there forever. And I just can't imagine now, after 13 seasons with the Cowboys, I could have gone to another team and played, but retiring was the only option because I couldn't see myself wearing another uniform. I just could not see it. And once you become a Dallas Cowboy and you're a Dallas Cowboy for life, back then, as you know, Preston, players played for one team a lot more than they do today. Today, they're chasing money, and quarterbacks do it a little bit, but it's not very often you see a guy just play for one team.
You know what, Danny, you talked about Coach Landry, and to hear it from someone who didn't play for him, I thought he was special too. Told Stacy about this story. And a real short version of that is after every game we played, the Cowboys, certainly we got a chance to say hello to the guys and you and so on. But I always went to Coach Landry. After my career was over, I received a personal letter from him. And I used to run a celebrity golf tournament in Albuquerque. I brought some Cowboys in and we hosted at my house, and not one of them had that personal letter of well wishes, and it was a great pleasure to play against you. And I thought that of him too, and I didn't even play for him. I thought he was a great coach. And in '84, I almost went to the Cowboys. I didn't believe I was going to. Yeah, I was being traded by John Robinson, and they'd made a deal for Butch Johnson and myself, an even swap. And I thought I was going to St. Louis through Dallas, and I didn't accept the deal, and they shipped me off to Buffalo. But Tom Landry, I got it on my wall today. It's a beautiful laminated letter, his signature. And I don't know if there's any other Cowboys that have that. But that's from a guy that didn't play for him, that really admired him.
Well, that sounds like him. He and Gil did little things that nobody else did like that. That's a perfect example, Preston, of the kind of guy the kind of organization that they were. Gil, to get Roger, to get Drew Pearson, free agent, undrafted free agent, and guys like Preston Pearson, who was a basketball player. Rayfield Wright out of where was he, Appalachia State or someplace. I mean, they went to these little schools and found players in the strangest places, and it was Gil and Tom, and just they were just incredible. They were ahead of their time when it came to finding the kind of players, and this is what Tom Landry taught me. Maybe more than anything else, I asked him when I was having lunch with him, and I asked him what made him unique, what was the key to his success, and he took out a piece of paper and drew a circle and put a bunch of dots in it, and he said, scientists, and Coach Landry wasn't a talker. He was not a man of a lot of words, but for some reason this got him going. He said, scientists tell us that in a molecule, and that circle was a molecule, there are charged particles. And through an electron microscope, you can move those particles around. And if you get enough of them in a straight line, the rest of them fall into line without any force being applied to them.
Interesting.
And then I said, and then he sat back and I said, okay, coach, what's that have to do with your success as a football coach? He said, well, and he put a SB up at the top of the circle. And he said, this is the Super Bowl. And then he put a little line over to the side. And he said, we've decided that we're going to go to that line and then around. That's the way we're going to get to the Super Bowl. And you put those dots in a straight line headed that way, and then all the others, and you got this straight line of charged particles headed towards your goal. And I said, okay, Coach, you still haven't got me yet. He said, well, those first few dots that you put into line are your captains. And that line over to the side of the circle is your philosophy. And if you get enough guys lined up in a straight line towards your philosophy and they buy into it, the rest of the dots representing the players will fall into line without any force being applied to them. It's choosing the right captains, he said, is the key to his. And I said, well, Coach, you didn't pick the captains. We did. We voted for the captains every year. You had us write 3 names down, and we picked the captain. You didn't. He said, yeah, but who counted the votes?
I love it. Love it.
That is awesome.
My God.
And that's why guys like Leroy and Roger and House and those guys were always the captains because they set the tone. They ran the team.
Yeah.
And that was, according to Coach Landry, his key to success was finding the right players, and that's what Gil and Tom were just together. They were magical.
Incredible. I have to say that I remembered an interview from when I was a kid watching you. And I'm just going to come out with it, Danny, here. I'm an older guy now, but back then, man, I hated you. Every time against the Rams, it was always, we're going to have to go through the Cowboys. That's just the way it was back in the 70s and 80s. But I went back because I remembered an interview with Tom Landry, and I thought when he was asked about you, he said it so well. He said that you were very underappreciated, that you're a proven winner. He said that the only reason Danny isn't talked about a lot more, and I'll never forget it, I went back and found it, he said, is because he was wedged between Roger and Troy. But people don't remember that Danny White carried this team. And so I think it's really cool to hear that story. Thank you for sharing that, because he clearly valued you at that level.
Yeah, thank you. And that was the greatest compliment I think I've ever been paid, is when he called me one of the greatest winners that we've had in football. And I have that quote
I love it
on my wall, because it's pretty special coming from him. And, my relationship with him and with Roger, I mean, these are people who share my beliefs, my priorities, and I was so lucky to have been able to be associated with those men. Roger was such a great example to me. I'll tell you a real quick story about Roger. Everybody, his competitiveness is legendary. He and I would compete to the death at anything we could compete at. Ping pong. First time I played him in ping pong at training camp as a rookie. He was the king of the ping pong table.
Wow.
I played ping pong my whole life growing up. He didn't know. He thinks I got this little rookie. Well, I beat him, and the paddle stuck in the wall when he threw it after I beat him. And that's when I saw the first little piece of. But he and I became great friends. I think because we not only were we competitors, but we shared these beliefs, and we competed in workouts. And I remember bench pressing, and the Cowboys quarterback bench press record was 290 pounds.
Wow.
One day, I was particularly feisty, and we were standing around, we were all working out together, and I put 305 on the bench, and I got it. And I got
you?
And everybody was screaming and yelling and cheering and way to go, Wiz, way to go, man. And except for Roger. Roger was standing there with this scowl on his face.
Yeah.
And he just turned around and walked in the locker room. He came out about 30. He said, "Where's Roger going? What's the matter with Roger?" "Oh, Roger's pissed."
He's upset.
And he came walking out about 30 seconds later with a Coke cup, a paper red Coke cup. What's he going to do with that? He came around to the bar with 305 pounds on it, and he took the bottom out of that Coke cup and he stuck it on the end of the bar, and he went around and got underneath it and bench pressed it.
And what?
No, I held the Cowboys bench press record for about 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And he beat me by the weight of a Coke cup.
Wow.
And that was Roger. And he claims, I don't know if it's true, but I'll take it as a compliment, that he wouldn't have been as good a quarterback if it hadn't been for me competing with him and pushing him. And then he also said one of the reasons he retired was because he knew I was ready to take over. And he'd had some concussions, and he was going to play a couple more years. But he said knowing that I was there influenced him. So that's a big compliment. But, those are the kind of stories, guys, that I mean, to me, my career, for whatever value is all a result of the people around me. And the fact that I didn't choose them, I just kind of fell into line and was lucky enough to be surrounded by people like that.
Wow. That is an
Incredible.
outstanding story. I mean, who would have, because when we got ready to play the Cowboys, a lot of times they say, well, let's get number 1 out of there and bring in number 2. Well, number 1 and number 2 were just as good as 2 and 1. And so it didn't matter. We had to ball out, but the hour's growing late. I know Stacy's got a couple more questions for you. We want to get to that 2-minute drill, but I got one question to ask you. And take us to your coaching tenure. Yeah. After playing and having a successful career. You went into coaching. Was that by choice or a great opportunity presented itself?
Yeah, I was living in Dallas, and I was kind of bouncing around between the oil and gas business and the real estate business and doing some things. And I got a call from Dick Van Arsdale, of all people.
Really?
Who was in the front office for the Phoenix Suns.
Arizona,
and he said, Danny, and I knew Dick, and that's why it was him that called me and not Jerry or Brian. But he said, Jerry and Brian Colangelo just purchased a franchise for the Arena Football League.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to know if you'd have any interest in moving back to Phoenix and starting up that team for them. And, again, it couldn't have come at a better time because I was anxious to get back with my all my siblings and parents, and still lived there. And so I jumped on that. And again, what a great experience to coach, to start up that arena. I've never had as much fun in my life. Preston, and this would have been a great game for you. Than coaching arena football. Never had so much fun in my life with football as those 12 years of coaching the Arizona Rattlers. And, it's one thing to win a championship as a player, but you're just one little piece in a giant puzzle. Imagine being the guy putting that puzzle together. Winning the championship,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, and you don't get all the attention. You don't get, because the players get it, and they should. But man, what a tremendous feeling it is to be the head coach or be a coach and see your designs implemented on the field and successfully.
Yeah. Outstanding.
I feel like you were the face of arena football there for like a decade. Like I feel like you, as well as a couple others, really put that whole league on the map.
Yeah, and I still don't know to this day why it wasn't more successful. We just could not get the TV ratings that we needed for it to allow us to pay the players what we were paying them. We were paying them pretty good money, but we just could not. We put 15,505 people in America West. Back then it was America West Arena where the Suns play. For every game. That was a sellout. We sold out every game for 10 years and played every playoff game in that arena and won the Arena Bowl and still lost money. So, with the only revenue that you're getting is coming from ticket sales and local advertising. They ended up going to the AF2 model, which is paying the players a lot less money, but the owners at least made money. That's what they're doing to this day.
Yeah.
Is the players don't get nearly the money that they got back then, or the coaches, but at least it's successful and it's generating a profit. But that's what we sold out every game and still couldn't make a profit. And that was the problem. Without TV revenue, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. There was a certain big league that probably played a little role in that too. We'll leave that one alone. That's just my theory, but
all right, Stace, well, you take it away, my friend.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm going to do the 2-minute drill.
You are going to do it.
I'm tempted, of course, to ask Danny about his country music career, but I don't want to blindside him.
Another time.
But we'll do that another time. I've listened to the song. It's a good song. It's a good duet. Yeah, I liked it. Okay, we'll get back to that. But let's do the 2-minute drill with the iconic Danny White. Danny, this is just rapid fire. Just gives us a chance to learn about you. So here they come. Turf or grass?
Today's turf or the turf when I played?
Oh, We've never been asked that.
Well, I know the answer to that one.
Yeah. The turf when I played and when Preston played, that AstroTurf that they started out in Houston with, that AstroTurf is what it was called. Man, that was brutal. It was literally a little piece of carpet over
on
concrete. And,
How did you guys survive that?
I know to this day that part of the 6 back surgeries that I've had is a result of playing on those first generation AstroTurfs. Now, today it's pretty good stuff. I would not mind playing on the artificial turf of today.
Okay, Preston is pleased with that answer. That's great. Great. That's awesome.
I'm happy.
I love it. Okay, next question. College, World Football League, NFL, or Arena League? What would you choose? It's tough.
Well, again, as a player or a coach?
I'm going to go player.
As a player, I would choose the NFL. As a coach, I would choose arena football.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2-time, a championship coach. I love it. Okay, Danny, your favorite movie?
Ooh. Oh.
Stumps him every time.
Yeah. Oh, wait till he gets the last question.
Oh, yeah, that's
favorite movie.
I honestly don't know.
It's okay. Probably one we should ask your wife.
Question. I can tell you one of my favorites.
North Dallas.
One of my favorites would have to be.
Go ahead, say it. Come on.
Well, I don't know which one to say.
Both.
No wrong answers.
Okay, I'm gonna. It would be in my top 10 at least, but Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, that's a great
one. Although the Cowboys, John Wayne, and the Cowboys has got to be right up there too.
That's a classic.
Boy, that's and I am a big movie and music buff. The piano has been a big part of my life, playing the piano and sing. So any of my favorite movies would have to have great music.
Okay.
The Phantom of the Opera.
I feel like that's a teaser for a second interview down the road. I did not know this about you. That's amazing. Okay. We'll wrap it up with just a couple more. The most underrated teammate you played with at any level?
Robert Newhouse.
Wow.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Man, he was a load.
He was a load.
That guy.
House wasn't big, but his thighs were bigger around my waist.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the guy, in fact, it's the only. I went to Coach Landry. We got a guy by the name of Ron Springs came with us. A great athlete. Ron was, and but he was young. He was a rookie, and I remember going to Coach Landry on the sideline, and I had been beaten up. I don't even remember who we were playing, and I said, "Coach, I am not going back out there without House. You put Robert Newhouse in the game at fullback, and I'll go back out there. But otherwise, I don't want any part of it because House would." He's one of those guys that would just do whatever it took to get the job done. And I loved playing with him, but he never got. Of course, he's fullback with Tony Dorsett, and so he's just not going to get the attention that Tony got.
Boy, I'll bet if we pulled linebackers from the late 70s, early 80s that had to get in the A gap with Robert Newhouse, they would go, I didn't like that guy very much.
He was like a twin to Earl Campbell, not as big, but the same kind of a runner, that type of runner.
Wow, unbelievable. Love that choice. Yeah. Okay, Coach White, your
greatest. Can I give you an honorable mention?
Of course.
Yeah.
You guys, you're picking my brain now, and you got stuff.
Love it.
Mike Renfro, is
another
great receiver that was too small and too slow.
Oof.
But somehow I remember him catching a pass on 4th and 15 against the Vikings. because he ran an out takeoff, and how do you get a corner to bite on 4th and 15 when they've got a lead? It's like the last play of the game, but he did. And anyway, so Robert Newhouse, Mike Renfro. There you go.
I love those choices. That is such a trip down memory lane for me. I love it. Your greatest football achievement? You've had quite a few.
Greatest football achievement. It was important to me. It wasn't a win-loss record as much as it was winning playoffs. And I think I only started and finished 5 seasons for the Cowboys. I played in a 6th one, but I broke my wrist in the middle of the season and I only played 8 games. But in the 5 seasons that I started and finished, we played in 10 playoff games. So an average of 2 playoff games a year. We won 3. We went to 3 NFC championship games the first 3 years that I started. Just couldn't get one at home. I think that was the key to getting to the Super Bowl. But I played in 2 Super Bowls, won 1 and lost 1, but not as the starter. I was a backup to Roger. So I think the Cowboys would probably be happy with 10 playoff games in 5 years today, and I think just the fact that we were competing and in the hunt every year. It wasn't good enough for Cowboy fans, because if you didn't win the Super Bowl, it wasn't good enough. But I think that was probably the thing I would like to be remembered for. Is just incredible. I was a quarterback on winning football teams.
Yeah, I want to add that I remember the year you got hurt. You guys were either the number 1 or number 2 offense in the league when you hurt your wrist.
We were number 1.
Yeah,
we were number 1, and that was the year we got Herschel Walker.
That's right.
Oh yeah,
Herschel and Tony in the backfield together. And I've never had so much fun playing quarterback in my life as I did, because Herschel would line up at fullback or tail, and then he'd shift, and you just watch the defense react, because he would go to the slot, or he'd go to tight end, or he'd go out wide, or he'd go to tailback. They never knew where he was going to go and how they were going to cover him.
Wow,
you guys
he was a special football player now, but
yes, he was.
But yeah, that was that year, 1986. We were 6-2, and we were on a pace to break all the scoring and yardage records.
I remember it all too well. And then you got hurt. I'm sorry that happened. But final question, we got to get you out of here, Danny. Who plays you in a movie of your life? I got a feeling I know what he might say based on an earlier answer.
Well, John Wayne.
I knew it. I nailed
it. He had to go there, right?
I said he was going to say the Duke. I knew it.
Yeah. The Duke.
What an absolute pleasure this has been with the great Danny White. Iconic is an understatement. Can't thank you enough for joining Preston and I, and for your fellow brother in arms over there. Any final words for Danny there, number 88?
Man, Danny, you made a great evening. I really appreciate it. You have no idea. Yeah, you probably have a little bit, but you have no idea how much I really, really appreciate everything you are and what you've been. A true person, a friend, and a father would always enjoy and have the comfort of knowing that another man could respect and take care of their child. You did that in the athletic field.
Wow.
And you grew my boy up. I want to thank you personally for that.
Well, thank you, Preston. And let me tell you, the Denard family has been special to me too. And that boy of yours is something special. I loved him. I loved him as a player.
Oh, man.
Those guys. So please give him my best. And
I sure will.
Thank you guys for having me on, man. I just got to get back to my John Wayne movies now, and
There you go.
you put me a little behind. I got to get caught up.
All right. We
And
better
your
get him
lovely
out.
bride. And your lovely bride. Congratulations.
Okay. Yes, sir.
This has been amazing. To the great Danny White and my partner, number 88, Mr. Preston Denard. Thanks for joining us on Gridiron Icon. Follow us in all the usual places, including YouTube. If you'd like to see Danny and how he's doing now, follow along. You can follow us on social media and all the other places. And again, to the great Danny White, thank you. And Preston and I will see you all next week.